We live.
What up, my guy?
You know what episode this is?
Lucky 13.
13. Has that number ever treated you bad? 13?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, me either. I don't understand why it's not lucky.
I don't know. It's just one of them things that everybody scared of.
Yeah,
Universal universal
especially when he
fear.
got that Cleveland Browns jersey on. All right, episode 13. Very special guest. You want to introduce him, KG?
Yes, sir. We got Jerron Hamm, one of my former teammates, 49ers. He played with the Redskins, and I got a good chance to, see his type of personality. He's a real down to earth guy. He's an entrepreneur. He has a trucking company, and he's doing the thing on YouTube. And over the time, I just realized I just love people, seeing people grow. And we were only teammates for about a year, but we stayed in touch with social media, and I just seen his growth with transitioning from the game to a businessman. So I'm excited to have him on, the podcast today.
Yeah. Thank y'all for having me, man. It's definitely an honor to be on here. And like KG said, man, we kind of just connected, I guess, when we got to the 49ers. You were one of the guys who took me in right away as a new guy. So I definitely appreciated that and always looked at what you had going on. So this is awesome what y'all got going here.
No doubt. Yeah, that was something that I always liked, because I know, being a part of the league, I was one of the guys that bounced around a little bit, and I knew it was so important for people to have feel comfortable right away, because it could be a little intimidating coming into a new locker room, especially you when you first came with us. It was literally the last game of the season. We were just talking about offline. So I know that could be a little challenging. You came from the Redskins all the way to California. I mean, the Washington football team, all the way to the other side of the country to a 49ers team that you didn't know anybody. So the tight ends locker were right by the running back. So I've always been a guy to kind of welcome people with open arms, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, you did that for sure.
All right, so let's jump into it. So, Jerron, you had an interesting start to your life, at least from my perspective.
Very.
Born in Germany,
Yeah.
pastors as parents. So, tell us about that. Like, how Germany and how, I mean, not how Germany. Well, yeah, why Germany, and how was it growing up with two pastors as parents?
Yeah, so my dad was in the army. He was in for 20 years and I guess he got stationed over there while my mom was pregnant with me. So I spent my first 5 years there, then went back to visit in high school. But it was cool. Being in the military, military kid, my dad was always, deployed and coming back. So it was mainly me, my mom, and my two sisters. But I enjoyed living there and then moving to Louisiana, Texas, kind of getting to meet a lot of people along the way.
Okay, I'm about to say I hear the South. I don't hear no German accent.
Nah, I don't know none of it. Not none of it. We was
Are
all
you
on
dual
military. What's that?
Do you have a citizenship for Germany?
Not that I know of. I think you have to like declare it by 18, but
Okay.
I never planned on living there. But I mean, now I wish I would have. I wish I might have would have did it back then.
Yeah. All right. Um, so let's fast forward a little bit. So in your high school years, and obviously, as KG said, you were an athlete. But in your notes, you talked about your coach. So tell
Mhm.
me the influence of your coach and how he helped you get your scholarship that you got later on.
Yeah, man. So early on, like football was not a part of my life. My dad didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I didn't play pee wee or none of that. I was in piano lessons in about seventh, eighth grade, and all my boys was playing football. So I got out. You know, my parents was pastors, so they trying to groom me to work in the church somehow. But anyways, I convinced them to play football and went out. And I didn't really get much playing time until my junior year. So from seventh grade to my junior year, when this coach came in, Coach Terrence Williams, he came in from North Shore in Houston, and they were fresh off a state championship. And he was like, "You too tall not to be good at football." I was like, "Man, I like basketball." So he had us going to camps. Practice was different. The whole nine was different. Plus, we had Michael Ford, who was committing to LSU, Trevante Stallworth going to Auburn. So we had a little spotlight on Leesville at that point. And so that's kind of how I ended up getting into the camps, going with them. And ULM was the one team that I guess liked what they seen at the camp. Once they offered, then I had a few more, but I stuck with who offered me first.
Wow. See, I'm jealous that you ain't played football till you was 16.
That's what they all say, man.
Man,
That's
for the
what people
league.
always say.
Oh man. And then like the height, I'm jealous of that too. Do you think that it would have benefited you if you would have been playing since earlier? Like how old were you when you started KG?
Shoot, it was your pops that convinced my mom to sign. So I would say like
So you playing
9.
baseball first?
Nine.
We played baseball first, and then your mom and your pops was like, "Yo, sign him up for football," because he seen how active I was. And then
Ah,
like I would think I was like 9 because I first started playing. We first was started playing on the 75s, but then you missed weight, fat ass, and and had to play for the 95.
I started when I was 4.
Sheesh.
Like in my blood. I was only 4 for like a week. My birthday is like right at the start of the season, but I was 4. But do you think that that made a difference for you, or would have made a difference if you would have started earlier, Jerome?
I think so because just being familiar with the game, like all my boys knew what was going on. I didn't know what a receiver was, a corner, quarterback. I didn't know none of that. So coming in, it definitely would have put me ahead to maybe play sooner. But I think that where I did get in at allowed me to be able to learn, at a more mature mind, at a more mature age. And so I could soak in the knowledge I was getting on the high school level.
Got you, got you. KG, you wrong. 3rd grade.
Third. How old were you? How old are we in third grade? Like 10, 9, 10?
3rd grade.
8.
That's like 9, 10.
Nah,
Yeah,
not yeah, like
about 8.
9 or 10. Hey, what
Eight.
you
I
talking
was
about,
10
man?
in,
Hold
10
on,
in
I don't
fifth
know.
grade.
Hold on, let me do the math. So I was 5, turning 6 in kindergarten. It was my birthday in November.
Hmm.
So 6 turning 7 in first, 7 turning 8 second. Dang, I was old as crap in second grade. Dang. So second grade, right? Or third
Uh,
grade, whatever.
but yeah, that's one thing about football that's like unlike any like basketball. You can just pick it up and play. Not
Right.
necessarily about the skill, but you can understand the game. Football is so much going on, and I can only imagine Texas high school football. That's like the NFL junior. You feel me?
Right.
Can't be out there not knowing what's going on. And like I'm sounding like an old dude, but we ain't have all these soft rules. Like you can get cracked back, and then all of the different kind of rules. So it's dope that you just stepped out there because I can only imagine I probably would have been super intimidated to start playing football in Texas as a junior. You feel me? But also I'm only 5'8", like 160. It's a different kind of animal than stepping out there like a one of y'all big dudes. But tell us about the camps and how you got your offer because you
The
were.
camps. So really, out here I train with some high schoolers, and I live in Dallas, and those guys are ahead of the game. But when I was playing, my dad was still stationed in Leesville, Louisiana. So we were real small. We had a Walmart, and like I said, we had a couple of stars. But that's where the coach came in and brought us to these camps in Texas and showed us how like these guys competing, they on a whole nother level. So just by being exposed to better, it made us better while he was at Leesville. But when he left, things kind of got shaky, and it showed you the impact that one man can shift the mentality of a team. And we start having like 5 or 6 guys get offers after he came.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw that you said he changed your perspective as a man. So
Hmm.
let's dive into that because something like I study leadership and like the brain and all those kind of things, and I keep seeing like knowledgeable people say that every boy should have a second father,
Mm,
not an actual father, but a father figure. Because
yeah.
when it gets to that point around the teenage years when you start feeling yourself, you start to push back, and another man who knows your father and knows you well can play that balance, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
when the emotions isn't there, the love isn't there, you can kind of receive the information as feedback instead of criticism. And with us being teachers, kids that told and kids that told us multiple times, like, "Yo, coach, if it wasn't for you, I would have done X, Y, Z."
Right.
Now, because of Mr. Malcolm, I'm doing ABC. So, oftentimes, it may not be the family that can change your life, but it could be a coach or a mentor or somebody else. So,
Mm-hmm.
Camps, what was his impact on you, and how did he go about teaching those things to you?
Yeah. So I mean, you made a good point right there. You need somebody external because you get into the rhythm of your parents telling you stuff, and it kind of goes in one ear and out the next. But when he came in, he was kind of just stern. He was stern in his values, stern in his beliefs, a family man. So that alone made him like, okay, this is somebody who I can trust, who's doing it. He's on the right path, right? But then when it came to excuses, that's one thing he always said, like, I don't care about the excuses, I care about the results. And so I seen how he operated with his own son. His little son was there with us. He was probably 5 or 6 at the time, and I could see like, okay, he's raising him right. He's come in and got control over this team pretty quickly because we all respected his demeanor and how he carried himself within his own family. So we trusted that he was going to take care of us as his football family.
Okay, okay. Are you an introvert?
I believe so. I'm trying to work on it, man. I like to chill, be to myself. I got a real small circle, but with business and trying to, I guess, root myself in Dallas, I got to get out and got to
Uh,
talk to more people. So, but naturally, yes, yeah, I am.
Yeah, okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I am too. Because I could tell from your responses that you pay attention to stuff.
Hmm.
You busy talking and extroverted and all that stuff. You kind of miss stuff because you are what the other people are watching. You know,
Yeah,
I think also as a businessman, that's a gift. Like in the beginning, you got to do that kind of stuff, but in the end, you don't got to be in front of nobody. You know,
yeah,
come sit at the table, 3 or 4 people. You know, had your extrovert team, weed everybody out, and then like now you the decision maker. Like you ever did what's some things called? What is it, timeshare trip?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. My boy
Right?
sent me one from Washington. One of my old teammates sent me one.
Where did you go?
We went to Orlando.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did that too. We did
man,
that
they be
probably about
hounding.
a year and a half ago, maybe now. But I would be like that last person. You know how they got the first person, they give you the presentation,
Hmm.
got your job, and why vacation is needed and all those kind of things. Then they got the other person who showed you around the property. Then I gotta talk to my boss. I gotta talk to my boss. Then it's the last dude. He come and he write the little number on the paper. You gonna take it or not? That's the boss, and he don't do all the talking.
Right.
So I
That's
wouldn't
a good
say
point.
don't feel like you got to change everything, but you just got to survive until you can thrive. Does that make sense?
Right, right. Yeah.
Then you
Yeah,
got
that's
the
a good point.
KGs who gonna talk your ear off.
Hey, just like in the locker room, you
Yeah,
knew when he was around.
yeah. What was he doing? Tell us the KG
Either he
story.
telling jokes, cracking on people, something,
You got any
something.
memorable stories?
With KG, I
Yeah.
remember this wasn't in the locker room. Actually, it was Cinco de Mayo when we went out, and I had this long line tee. It was gray, and so our workout tees were gray also. So I got there. I'm feeling myself. I'm like, I'm looking good. KG started clowning me, talking about, what we going to workouts? What you wearing? I was like, come on, man. I'm from Leedsville. This is swag to me. Like, oh, look at my boy Hamm getting ready for workouts.
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
hear him
oh.
saying.
Now the rest of the night, it was early. The rest of the night, I'm looking at myself like, man, what everybody dressed up? What everybody dressed like out here?
He had you feeling bad.
I remember that.
Hey, I know I remember that Cinco de Mayo too. We was in Campbell, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Like,
Yes, sir.
don't tell on yourself now.
Ain't nothing to tell, bro. That was just a fun time.
Good times. Sure, good
I'm
times.
gonna leave it at that. But so you ended up, what is it, Louisiana Monroe, correct?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
All right. And you from how far was that from home?
About 2.5 hours.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right, so
north.
close enough, far enough. Um, how was that experience? Because I know you said you didn't get too much burn until junior year. So how
Hmm.
did you get through those first couple of years?
So this was the part that I do regret because when I went in as a freshman with that mindset like I got time. And so I went in like we got a starting receiver. I know he got 2 years left, so it's gonna take me 2 years to start playing. Not even knowing that I could take over the spot. But going in really learning a playbook. In Leesville, we used to have the wrist, like the wristband with the play, so it was pretty easy. So going out there and learning the playbook, being around new guys, being away from home for one, you kind of got a lot thrown at you at one time. So really managing it, football helped me manage the college life as a younger guy going to getting away from home.
Yeah. And I think you just you touched on something pretty big. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically said that you limited your chances to get as much burn as possible from freshman year because you didn't believe that you can get whatever burn you were shooting for.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So something we strive to do are to take deep dives into the things that everybody talks about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll just leave it there like, oh, you ain't believe it. But like what does belief mean? Right? So we like to break it down. So a belief we go, whatever you believe leads to your anticipation, right? Because
Okay.
you came in thinking I'm a dog, I'm gonna start from day one, I'm anticipating camp, I'm gonna cook everybody. Or you can come in and anticipate, oh my man, he ain't start for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna start for 2 years. So I got some time to just get a feel for the program and XYZ, right?
Right. Right.
After what you believe and anticipate, that determines what you're intentional about, right? If you know you got a dog dudes out from day one, you're going to show up early, right?
Mm-hmm.
To campus, whether it's to practice or whatever it may be. You're going to watch extra film. You're going to look up the other incoming freshmen to see, oh, I could beat him out. I could beat him out, or X Y Z. Or if you feel like you got the 2 years, you're going to be intentional about taking your time. Well,
Yeah.
practice, I'm gonna figure it out, or I'm gonna just watch my man and see how he did it instead of being intentional about doing what you can do, right?
Right.
And then whatever you're intentional about over the long run, that's what you focus on. You feel me? If you're
Mm-hmm.
on a 2 year scheme, you're gonna do everything in your power to meet that scheme. But if you're focusing on the game one scheme, you're gonna do everything in your power to meet
To
that scheme.
be out there. Yeah.
And then finally, after the focus, that's where you start to see opportunities or you don't see opportunities, right? So hypothetically, one receiver is out tying his shoe, and you right there, and you can jump in. If you believe in that you the dog that's going to start game one, you're going to jump in, even though the junior is right next to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe you on the 2 year John, 2 year time frame, you're going to look at my man and see if he's going first,
Hey,
and
hurry
he's
up.
going to get a chance. You know,
Tap 'em.
so
Yeah.
we like to take a chance, take the time to break those things down because what you believe, like, it really matters. Like what you think, it really matters. Like think about it. Like we sitting on the computer talking.
Yeah.
Somebody thought about this first. They thought it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We all got phones. If it was probably 40 years ago, yeah, I'm gonna make this box that got waves that can travel around the whole world instantly, and you can talk to anybody live. And then after that, I'm gonna put our faces on it, right? So whoever that was crazy, but they believed it, you know. And then that cycle started to continue. So the reason I'm gonna stop us sometimes to like take teachable moments
No, yeah.
is to use these podcasts once we can start being in front of people again, to use them as resources when we start teaching primarily high school level kids again.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said, had I heard that coming into college, that would have been a game changer because that's actually the first time I heard that broken down like that. You
So
know, like you said, I came in with the mindset we got the starter. He had a good year the year before. They not gonna play me. And I think coming from a small town and not realizing that I'm just as good as everybody, especially going from junior year just playing. So I'm coming in like I still don't really know the game. So I'm gonna sit back. But had I had somebody tell me that, my coach, the one who I said was an impact, he ended up getting a job somewhere else. Senior year was like it was me by myself at that point. So I had somebody mentor me in that way and saying, go in here and be the dog and be the starter versus, oh, they got so and so still in front of you, but he gonna be a senior soon.
Yeah.
That's a game changer right there.
Yep. And
It,
that's what. Go ahead, KG. But I'm saying that's why we do this.
Yeah.
yeah, and I kind of had an opposite experience than you, Jerron, because when I went to Richmond, my coach in high school, he was the one that was drilling it. He drilled it in me that I was better than I thought I was. So when I went to Richmond my freshman year, Coach Mike London, he came and told me, and I was like one of the last recruits at Richmond. I barely even got an offer from him. He was the one that told me, like, the second practice, he was like, you're probably not going to redshirt. And the year before that, they won the national championship. So all the starting offense, it was like 9 out of 11 starters were like 4th or 5th year seniors. And then he tells me that I'm not going to redshirt. So instantly, like the next day, I was in ones and twos reps. So I had to bring it. And if he didn't kind of tell me that right away, and he kind of just let me float in there, I
Right.
probably wouldn't have believed in myself as much as I did, because my freshman year, I ended up being all conference, leading our team in touchdowns as well. So that little thing, but hearing it from an outside source, and especially from a coach who just won the national championship the year before, and we already knew he was getting looks from FBS schools. That was everything that I needed to do to kind of propel my career. So it's interesting that we had just talked about that with Malcolm, because you didn't come in with that mindset. Neither did I. But once I heard that from our head coach, it kind of kicked me into gear to believing that, I was a player that was definitely able to, the team was able to count on, especially with me, because I was one of the last recruits that the school even brought in. So originally I was just like, I'm a filler guy. Originally I was happy to get there, but originally I thought I was like, oh, I'm just somebody because somebody else probably didn't commit. But clearly I was wrong, because the first couple of practices he told me already his intentions. In the FCS level, it's rare to see a guy, coming and playing right away as a freshman. I think my freshman year we only had 3 total, and one was me, the other was a kicker, and the other one was a long snapper, who actually helped me get into the school because we went to high school together.
Nice. So when you came in, they had just come off a winning season.
Yeah, no, they just came off winning the national championship for the FCS. So I came in with, at that time, the only program in D1 that had a longer winning streak than the Richmond Spider was the Florida Gators.
Oh, wow.
Tim Tebow and all them, and it was rumors that they were trying to play us like, let's do national championship versus national champions. And our school was like, no way, we cool. We don't want that smoke.
That's what they were trying to do with UCF a few years ago. You remember they were saying they the national championship, national champions.
But that was different than Richmond though. UCF undefeated, they just beat Auburn.
Yeah, true.
It was like number 5 or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference. But
that's a big difference.
But Jerron, question for you, something that KG just said. When you got to ULM, were you just happy to get there?
When I got to ULM, honestly, I didn't think guys went to the NFL out of ULM. So at that point, football was still just the next level from high school. But what was my degree going to be in? And I was still thinking about life. I wasn't thinking about the National Football League. But kind of like UCF, my junior year, my first year starting at ULM, we beat Arkansas. They were ranked. We beat Arkansas. It was a big game. Then we went into overtime with Auburn. And at that point, the NFL became real because then teams started sitting in the stands at practice.
Uh-huh. Got you. Okay, so let's stay right there for a second. The happy to get there. I think that people who think like that lack the dog. Here's why. Because like the dog is going to say, it don't matter where I'm at. I can ball with anybody. but it's like who are you modeling yourself after? So one double A or FCS, like Danny Woodhead. I'm sure he started from game one. He had like 7,000 rushing yards. Um, Tony Romo, Lord knows how many games he started, right? So I wouldn't look at, and I don't know if I would have thought this then, but now that I understand things, I would look at the people who've made it as far as I'm shooting to go, what they did there, right? And y'all know, y'all played in the league. I'm sure the people that don't stick around in the league are people that are happy to get there. Their goal was to make it to the league. The whole, I want to go to the NFL. I want to go to the NFL. I want to go to the NFL. The dudes that go there and ball, I want to go to the NFL and I want to be a Hall of Famer. I want to go to
Mm-hmm.
the NFL and be first team All Pro. So like the NFL just part of the process as opposed to the end of the process, right? So let's stay here too. So once again, this goes into something else we dive deep in, the thought process. So you, KG, you ready? Do you know this? I done said it a million times.
Your thoughts lead to
Thoughts.
beliefs.
You ain't watching enough film. Thoughts lead to your choices.
Choices.
Choices. All right. Oh, I'm just in one double A. I can't make it. I'm gonna make the choice to do enough and not do more.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts, choices, then your behaviors, how you carry yourself. Right. You might be at all the parties and all that if you don't think you're gonna go to the draft. But if you think you're getting drafted, they're gonna dig deep into your history. You
Mm-hmm.
parties and just cool in the crib, or just you do something with the team. You don't go with the regular students, right? Thoughts, choice, behaviors, and that leads to your experience, right? Was my experience just using college to get my degree and prepare for life, or was my experience to use college to get my degree, prepare for life, put it on pause until after the league, right? And then that's going to lead to your emotions, and emotions ain't nothing but your energy and motion. If you're using college as a catapult, it's going to be a totally different experience as if you're using college as just something to get through. So once again, thoughts matter because that's going to dictate how you carry yourself. All
Yeah,
right.
that's deep right there.
What we got next? So yeah, junior year. Let's dive into that. What made you? Did you get something? Were you just the best of the position? Somebody got injured? How'd you start getting burned?
The coach who I talked about earlier, Terrence Williams, he came my junior year. He came leading into my junior year. We had another guy who was starting at the time. I was like JV maybe, but at practice I was balling. So he came and was like, "Hey, we're gonna start you on varsity." I was like, "All right, cool. I'm out here with Michael Ford, Trevante Stallworth. They my boys, so let's do it." Trevante throwing the ball. Um, and so that's really what got it. So that goes back to what I say: being around better can make people better if you come from a space where you're not exposed to that type of thing. So going to those camps, being on the field with those guys, it was like I need to up my game, especially as a guy who didn't pay attention to football. So now let me watch a little more film. Let me know what's going on versus being the guy who's still learning the game. Let me go ahead and learn it and dominate it. So him coming and actually giving me playing time, he's seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. And as a result of it, I end up as Kendall's teammate in San Francisco.
Yeah, you just had to believe it, man.
Yeah.
And that's what and that's definitely similar to what I just said. With Richmond, because
Yeah.
I knew I was a pretty good player, especially my senior year in high school. I just had a breakout season, but it happened so fast for me because my junior year I was just average. I played multiple positions. I didn't even want to play football my senior year. I wanted to focus on baseball, and then it just kind of happened, and it happened because I had people around me like Malcolm being in my ear. And the same thing is translating to, the circle as a man. And I noticed that's something you talk about a lot on your Instagram is having the right people around you. And when you have the right people around you, it forces you to up your level because no one wants to be any type of competitor. You never want to be the weakest one. And
Right.
Malcolm knows we had this conversation in the car the other day. We are doing something called, and we have a Nike Run Club. And for me, like when Malcolm, because I'm 3 times in a row, 3-time champion for the month. And Malcolm was like on my tail. He was only behind me for like 4 miles. And it like made me get like anxious, like, yo, like he's too close. So like having someone else to push you, but not only not only for you to reach that level is dope, because once you have other people around you reaching and striving for the same thing, and you see the type of work that they put, it makes you realize, the other, I can learn from other people's greatness versus some people seeing those people as threats and
Mm-hmm.
having that pride and not wanting to learn from somebody else because they're potentially better than you. So that's something that I learned kind of early, that I enjoyed being not the smartest person in the room or not the best person in the room at times, because it made me learn from each individual differently. And that's one of the biggest things that I kind of took from the NFL. And now, as a post football career, it's helping me out just as life wise, because I'm able to take more feedback versus making it personal and making it criticism, because I'm able to humble myself enough to know that I need people around me that are trying to do great things, because it's going to bring the best out of me. And it just comes down to being a superstar in your role. And obviously you're going to have you're going to have internal drive in the first place, but just having people around you that also have a strong internal drive and are still trying to kind of get to the same place you are is going to give you more perspective, and it's going to give you just more tools for your toolbox.
Yeah, what you just said there, though, on the flip side, and you probably seen it at Richmond, some of the guys who were talented enough to maybe either play more in college or even make it to the league, who they gravitated to, kind of dictated how they went in life. Like you
Mhm.
had your guys at ULM who stayed every break in the weight room, in the film room. And then you had your guys going home every chance, not finishing workouts. And so I was one of the younger guys who was going home initially, but I was like, wait a minute. All right, Jairus and Cam are staying and they're starting. So let me stay a few times. And once I started to gravitate around those guys, well, now what happened? It transitioned to the field. Now coach is like, hey, you put some weight on, you looking better, you're playing. But then you got guys out there who they're just as good. They can put in the same effort, or they might even be more talented than you, but they gravitate towards the guys who are lackadaisical, like, nah, I'm not gonna finish my set, coach tripping. And when you get around that group, it brings you down, just like being around what you just said, being around a group of guys who are go-getters will bring you up. So that's interesting that it can work that way. It's not necessarily about the individual, but more about the influences around the individual that can dictate where we go in life.
For sure, and that's something crazy too, because we just talked about that in the car yesterday, Malcolm, about how I just couldn't understand how people in college would want to go home and not stay over break and get the work in. Because one,
Mm-hmm.
in college in the summer, it was an opportunity for you to stay on campus for free, get ahead in classes, and you can earn a job while working out with our strength coach. And you still had access to the film room. You still had access to all of that. And then it was some people, and then we would do the conditioning test even before camp started. So that was one less sore day that we had than everyone else. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, it was like mind boggling, the guys that just would love going home. Or to me, we had some guys stay on campus and wouldn't even come to workouts. It's like, yo, what's the point of even being on campus if you're not even going to come to workouts? So that was definitely something for me. And it was actually one guy. He was from Texas, James McKinney, and he was supposed to go to Texas A&M, but he broke his ankle his junior year. So all of his big offers got kind of rescinded. So he ended up coming to Richmond. And I remember on signing day, he was a year after me. And on signing day, because I just came off a successful year, and then I see this man highlight tape on signing day. I'm like, holy hell, I ain't touching a rock again.
Hmm.
So like going in my sophomore year, like I was hungry. Like I seen the dude we just signed, because I knew how I was. I came as a freshman, took somebody else's spot, and then I knew how the game was. Like the goal of the team is just to keep getting better. So I
Yeah.
see this guy, and I'm like, yo, this guy's nice. Like he coming here? Like I was looking him up. Like he had me shook. And then when he got to school, just mentally, just like you said, he was one of those guys that didn't want to do the reps, would always wanted to go home. So that gave me the edge because he didn't have his talent was crazy. And I still remember it, and it hurt me to this day. It would make me so mad because that year he was there, he didn't work out on in training camp that year. He tore his ACL on a regular cut. Like it was just like a normal. It wasn't like, you know how some people tear the ACL and it's like, oh, you see it. His was just he put his foot in the ground and just go up, and his knee just gave out. So and then kind of after that, he didn't really have the mentality to even kind of recover. And it's sad because it was like, yo, this man put fear in my heart because I knew how good he was, but he didn't have that. Just like you said, he was around the guys that wanted to skip workouts. He wanted to do the least amount of reps as possible. And it, like, I still believe this to this day. If he did that, he may have took a lot of my reps. And I never really said that out loud, but he would have took a lot of my reps. But he was one of the guys that kind of just wanted to coast. And you know, fortunately for me, I was able to get the reps that he didn't take from me.
Right, for real.
All right, y'all had a lot. So back to belief, right? So depending on what you believe, that's going to lead to your environment, right? If you don't believe you got a future in football, or you believe it's just going to come to you, them the kind of dudes that go home, right? But if you believe you need all the work to prepare yourself for it, or football is more important to you, or whatever, you start to change your environment. And if people don't realize, it's usually you that got to change your environment. Like you can't like go somewhere else. You can't try to change where you at, because an environment will change a person far quicker than a person changes an environment, right? So you start hanging out with the starters, you start doing starter stuff. You start hanging out with the regular dudes, you start doing regular stuff. Start hanging out with the losers, you start losing. But when you believe and you change your environment, you start creating distance. Like when y'all stayed for the summer for those 2 months, when everybody else came back, you was 2 months ahead. You feel me? Did it again sophomore year, 4 months. Again, junior year, months. By the time the draft come, you got 8 months over the dudes who was going home chilling, you know? And then I'm going to challenge y'all, kind of twisted, but I think it's always best to be the weakest link, but you got to be in the right circle. Because if you're in the strongest link in an average circle or a good circle, you capping yourself, because you're gonna think you so sweet because you don't got nobody else sweet to compare yourself to, right? So like when you get in the locker room, don't try to hang out with the other rookies, right? Try to hang out with the other starters, or whoever, with the Anquans and the Joe Staleys, or in the Patricks and Navarro's and whoever else y'all had to hang around, right? So I would say that it's always the best to be the weakest in a strong circle, right? Because KG had it messed up by looking at the other dudes. It ain't matter who the other dude was, right? Compete versus yourself. The only thing in life that don't stop is time. You feel me? So you just got to do your best to utilize your time, right? So he could have came in and did everything he could, but KG, you just get better. Like you forgot that you just led the team in touchdowns. Not that you was the freshman. You were sweeter than everybody else as a freshman. With how many other dudes were seniors that were starting?
Like 9.
9. And you and the kicker?
Yeah, it was me, the kicker, and then our long snapper were the only true freshman to play.
Yeah, so you was the only position player to play, and you worry about somebody coming from high school.
Exactly.
Well, you
That's how shook I was about his highlight tape. Like, yeah, but then that's
I wouldn't even watch this highlight tape.
Huh?
I wouldn't even watch this highlight tape.
That's how college is.
Highlight
That's
tape.
You sitting there, who is
both dudes? But I would wait until he got there to see who's making plays and then go research. You can be all American in high school, but you ain't never played next to no Kendall Gaskins. You feel me? You might have to transfer because you're not gonna get these carries. Competing with me, all right. Let me go check my man out. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're gonna start building up anxiety because he was cooking versus high school dudes. It made you forget that you was a freshman cooking versus grown men. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like flip that as we advise that to the kids.
Of course.
That was dope. Y'all hit a lot of good things, but the trend that I'm hearing is like, yo, you gotta believe in yourself, yo. Because
Yeah.
if you don't believe in yourself, you ain't gonna think the right way, and your body and mind is just gonna do what you tell it to do. You feel?
Right.
You can't believe you're gonna run a 50 meters, and then run a 4.2 because you already capped yourself in your head. You're not just gonna accidentally do better than what you think.
And I'm gonna go back into the belief part. Right now, we work with a school, Fort Meade, and it's the first time I've ever worked with a team that doesn't really give you pushback. Like Ham, it's always guys when the coach tell you we got this, you're like, man, damn, coach. Like you
Yeah.
always know. And this team is no one like that. But their problem is they don't believe that they can make all the plays that they can make. So all that discipline that they have at that moment of attack when the ball's in the air, if they're a receiver or defender, that's when they get hesitant. Like, so it's crucial that we're actually talking about this because we can go show them how two former professional athletes at a time we questioned our belief, right? We questioned the belief in ourselves because of external forces when it all starts internally. And then as you get older or as your experience changes, your mentality changes, and you get to see like, yo, like this is all internal. Like I'm giving all these external forces so much power that it's handicapping me essentially because now I can't play to the speed or I can't write a paper to my ability or whatever it is I can't do this presentation or anything all because of the belief that now I'm fighting against myself because I don't believe that I'm capable enough of doing what I'm set out to do.
100%. And I had a question about that, Jerron. I heard you say that I'm just a dude from a small town in the country. So do you think
Yep.
that reality would have been different if you came from the city? And I asked you because we mostly work with dudes from the city, but
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
this team, they not from the country, but it's like suburban, like really suburban, and they've been every weekend playing 7-on-7 versus a team from the city, and just the team from the city come out smoking, they come out eating,
Hmm.
talking trash, scoring, and all that. But the suburban dudes, they come back and respond each time. But we can't get them to come out with that first, yeah. And they're just working in the school and working with different kind of schools. The city dudes got so much more edge. And it's not like they believe in themselves more. I don't know what it is, but they just so much like
Confidence.
Yeah.
yeah, so much more confident. And it's like kind of like ignorant confident. It's just like a mystery. So, do you think that your mentality and your thoughts would have been different if you came from the city as opposed to the country?
Yeah, definitely. Because we're closed off. We were in the woods and the trees in Leesville. And when I'm looking at rivals, like Kendall said, you looking players up. I'm looking at rivals and scout.com, and I'm seeing all these dudes from Dallas with 5 stars, 4 stars, and the highest stars we got in Leesville is 2. I'm like, okay, something's different about them. And so I think, like how you said, they respond every time, the team that you were talking about. I think it's not so much that they doubting themselves, but they want to fill out. It's like I got to fill out how good these people really are. Oh, they're not that much better, or they're not better than me at all. Now I'm gonna turn it on, which is not the mindset to have. It's like let me come in with it turned on, and then then we don't have to fight back in the game or fight back in whatever the sport is. But I think people want to feel everything out first. Like that receiver really not that fast. That
Yeah,
quarterback really not that accurate. I'm
yeah,
on it now. Now I'm gonna play to the best of my abilities versus when I'm playing timid or thinking he got 4 stars, so he that much better than me. When really they probably just went to more camps than you and got seen more than you. But I think that's the part being unexposed to the guys, especially in Dallas. When I go train with my NFL trainer, it's 8th graders out there, 9th graders with like 10 offers, juniors with 17, 20 offers. And I'm like, but y'all doing something different. We weren't out with a trainer. We was McDonald's after practice. Y'all, this is an actual culture here. So now it looks like Texas players are better, but really Texas players are putting in more work. And so they're getting more looks.
yeah, yeah. And what you just said is very, very important. Like the fact that like what we missed, like me and KG, I can't speak for you. Like we ain't have no OGs. Like we had a lot of people who cared for us and like pushed us to do well, um, to go places they've never been. But we ain't have nobody to like teach us the game, not football, but like
The
the
game.
Yeah,
of
oh,
life,
the
like the game
game.
of manhood, the game of knowledge. You feel me? Like for example, something I just learned. We were talking about John Maxwell before we got on camera. I just learned about the full story of David and Goliath. I didn't know that whatever person was sent to David's house, and he was sent there to choose the next king. And David had all of these older brothers, and they called in all of the older brothers and not David. They left David out in the field. And the dude was like, nah, like none of these dudes is it. So they was like, go get the other one. So David came in, he's way smaller, all dirty and beat up. He was like, that's the one. And then somehow they ended up going to some big event or something where all these people was, and that's where Goliath was. And Goliath was talking all of this trash to the people, and nobody wanted to fight him. So then David was like, "Yo, I'll fight him." So they gave David the armor, but it was too big because maybe somebody who was 6'4", he was like 5'8" or something. So he went out there with a slingshot and he beat him, right? Obviously, but I didn't know that he cut his head off, Goliath's head off, and held it up to everybody. You know, so that dog, he's like, I don't care if you 6'4", you feel me? I don't care if my brothers ain't what you. I'm gonna be the one to come get you. You feel me? Like you ever heard the story like that?
No, not the whole story like that. I just
Yeah,
know the slingshot, and that's about all I got out of Veggie
right.
Tales.
That's not all I got.
Yeah, I never knew. I was like, dang, it was all that. But once again, it goes back to that mentality. But that comes from being taught it. Unless you just naturally got it, and usually naturally got it, it's kind of dangerous. It's like it's untamed. You know,
Mm,
dudes who lead with their head and the dude who just do everything until life catch up to them. But having that trainer and having that trainer that trains your mind and your body, so you know from the ninth grade, like yo, it don't matter where I go to school, LSU, or maybe I don't. I get the LSU offer, but I want to play offense, so I can only go to XYZ. But I know I can go there because Jerry Rice went to where Jerry Rice go? South.
something in Mississippi,
Something
wasn't it?
small.
Yeah, he like probably the only person from that school to ever
Mississippi Valley. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mississippi Valley,
yeah.
right? I'm sure he didn't care. I'm sure he did, and we can go down the list with all of these other people.
Hmm.
That's why we're doing the things that we do because you could change your mind, you could change your life. You feel me? Because if you had a changed mind, maybe you go from a fourth round pick to the number one pick, or maybe you go from undrafted to sixth round, maybe you go from first round to undrafted. You know, but as soon as you step on that field, if you know and you believe in yourself and you know that you put the work in, everybody start on the same level. And depending on what you believe, depends on what you look at. Like, oh, I'm a 6th round pick. Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. Or I'm undrafted. I'm sure it's some Hall of Famers that was undrafted.
Yeah.
I think it's more Hall of
Tony Romo was.
Yep. And I think it's more Hall of Famers from the later rounds than it is from the first round. I think
I think.
that's proof right there. But if you don't believe it, you're not gonna look for that. You're gonna look at all the Dallas dudes with the 5 stars, and
Hmm.
then you gotta wait to get on the field to believe in yourself. And you left all of that time before. I don't want to say you wasted it, but you ain't use it all.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
ain't max it out.
because like, did y'all feel like was it like a switch when y'all started to believe in yourself?
That's
Oh,
what. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead, KG. What was it for
Nah,
you?
for sure. Because that moment that Coach London kind of came to me and kind of let me know, because he came to me, and then we had the starting quarterback and we had the captains there. So it was like that validation that like, yo, like this is, I really belong here. So now I went out there and I wasn't afraid to make a mistake. Like
Mm,
I wasn't afraid. So I was just out there having fun and getting after it. And that really allowed me to open up. It really allowed to me to break out of my shell, because I knew that, like these dudes believe in me. All I gotta do now is just prove it. Like I knew, like I was like, I knew I'm good, but when you coming into college, it's like, all right, I'm good. I came from here, but these dudes just won a national championship, and I'm good like them. So once I had that confirmation from the captains and the head coach, I just went out there and was like, yo, this is why y'all brought me here. And I blocked. I still remember the first rep I ever got. It was against we ran a power because at my school, like all of our bigger backs, they would recruit us as fullbacks, and then we would play. Then you would have to show and prove that you had the toughness and the unselfishness to block before you ever got the ball. And it was like three of us in a row, bigger backs, that we all went to the league. So it was Tim Hightower, then it was Josh Vaughn, and then it was me. We were all like bigger backs, and we all had to play fullback at one point. So my first play in college in practice, it was, and with the pads on, it was a power play to Eric McBride, who was an All-American linebacker, and I hit him. And afterwards, he hit me on the butt like, yo, like, good hit. And he was one of the captains in the room. So he went, once he was like, yo, like, good hit. And that's when I was like, yo, like, this is just football for me. And then that's when it kind of switched for me. And then the next year, I went from being all conference to all American. And then my coach, Stacy Tutt, just finished playing in the NFL. He was still training to be in the NFL. He was like, yo, dude, like, I don't think you understand. Like, you got talent. Like, you got it. And you can go. So I had an All-American season, got the confirmation from a guy who played at Richmond. He played quarterback. But when he did his pro day quarterback, receiver, safety, tight end. And he played fullback in the league, right? So I got that. He told me that, and it was like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I don't care. And it was a newfound confidence because now I understood, like, yo, like, I'm that guy. Like, and I don't care. And I knew it was an opportunity for me to go to the pros from Richmond because I literally met dudes that would come back and visit that were in the league currently that were there 2 years before me. So that gave me a lot of the confidence that I seen because, one, I saw the results that I was getting on the field. And then I also saw how the people, like my teammates and the coaches, had a newfound respect for me. And then I seen how they approach me differently. So that kind of shifted my mentality. And then my confidence right there was just like sky high through the roof. And then I believed in myself even more. So once that I started seeing the results, then that's when I even know even more, like, yo, like, what I'm doing, I need to continue to be on that same path.
For sure. What you said right there, seeing guys coming back from the league, I think that's a big mental boost for guys who come into smaller schools or not the Power 5 programs. Because at ULM, I didn't know anybody who went to the league. And there was one guy I met, and I was like, oh, you recruiting here? Or did you used to play here? That's what I said. Aaron Morgan. He just laughed and was like, nah. And I was a freshman at that point, and I was like, who is that? Somebody was like, oh, that's Aaron Morgan. He played for the Jaguars. He went here. And so I was mesmerized. He was the first NFL player that I had ever seen. I was like, whoa. But it was one. The majority was talking about how sorry we were at ULM. And it was the older guys who had a lot of talent, but they were just so used to a losing culture. And then we had a new coaching staff come in who didn't even offer me. That's not the coaching staff who offered me. So when I came in, I was like, are we an experiment? Are we just a bridge team, like the bridge recruiting class to get to their recruits who they really want? But for the main question, for the question you asked, like, was there a switch like that flipped? Mine would have to be when my junior year, we went out in Arkansas, and I'm like, this SEC team, I'm still on that. Like, whoa, this is a big team. This is my first time starting, and it's against Arkansas. Or maybe that might have been week 2, but it's against Arkansas when we're playing them. And I go out, 1 catch, 2 catch, 3. I think I ended with like 5 catches. And I was like, oh, I'm the truth. And that's when I was like, oh, are you doing this on the SEC team? Then we won the game, came back to ULM. The whole university was out there. It was like 3 a.m. Then a couple weeks later, overtime with Auburn. And I had a good game then Baylor. I was like, okay. But the work that I put in was what got me there, I should say. So I wasn't putting in the work, so I wasn't building the confidence. But when I started hanging with those guys over the breaks, and working out and running more routes and paying attention to plays. And I had a better understanding of the game. Even before the game, I was preparing for it in the hopes that it worked, not even sure that it worked. But now looking back, that's exactly what a lot more guys should do. But sometimes you get into a place like I might as well not put in the effort because that's not going to do nothing for me. What is watching film going to do? What is extra reps going to do? But really, that's what got me from a guy on the fence to a starter catching 5 passes against the SEC team. And so that's where the flip switch for me was when we went and beat Arkansas. And I was like, okay, we're a good team. And I was a big part of that.
I remember that game too. It was on ESPN, and
Mm-hmm.
they kept doing the upset alert, and then they put like a couple more of y'all games on the TV that year, just because y'all were like one of those teams that was just like competing with everybody that year.
Yeah.
I remember that y'all had like a Thursday night special game.
Yeah. We
I
was getting
remember
some
that.
airplay then. Our quarterback was on ESPN for like Heisman Watch early in the season.
I remember that
I was
y'all
like,
was
whoa.
and I was
Okay,
like, yo,
real.
damn, what is that? But that shows like it don't really matter. If you believe and you got that dog, you gonna beat down the Goliaths and do it on national TV.
For sure.
And that's why it's important. Like you got one it for yourself as a teacher, a leader, and all that kind of stuff. I think you're a much better teacher and a leader when you understand that you're just giving people pieces and understand they got to eat it. Like you can't get mad if they don't get it. And that's something else I really understood as I learned about the brain. So essentially what y'all did is y'all changed your relationship with stress. Prior to y'all moment, your relationship with stress was that it was a threat. Like the extra work you had to do, the extra film you had to do, the extra choices you had to make. It was a threat to something, a threat to your time, a threat to your thought process, a threat to whatever. But after you realized that you could get through it and perform well, you started to respond to that stress as a challenge. So you started to challenge yourself. You started to do extra things, and that really dictates what happened in your brain. Because when it's a stress response, like your brain is like made with circuits. Everything you do is like a message from one neuron to another. It's like imagine like train tracks, okay? But when it's a stress response, the train track it doesn't complete to its destination, and every completed circuit is like a new skill and increased ability to do things that are more difficult, right? But when you start to see it as a challenge, it's the cortisol that cuts off the train tracks, but serotonin and dopamine builds the train tracks. So after you believe, you're really changing your physical makeup, right? That's why you got better because like you literally got better. It wasn't just the thoughts, but the circuits. Because every time you do something, some circuits fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you started doing those extra drills, started hanging with those extra people, started putting in those extra works. So you literally got better. But it takes you to believe it first. So you can have any coach, you can have any book, you can have any video. None of that's going to do nothing for you until you believe it. Like once again, I could tell from both of y'all the belief thing is kind of what held you back until you got it, right? But it literally changed you once you start to believe in yourself. And it usually takes one experience. Remember we talked about thought process. That one experience changes how you think. Like you said, I had 5 catches versus Arkansas. I'm the man now. Dang, versus Auburn too. I'm better than the man. Dang, now we beat whoever else too. I'm better than that. Then now I can go to the league. So once again, let's go back to the eighth graders in Dallas. Like yo, just
Mm-hmm.
you could have had that in the eighth grade. You feel me?
For real.
You wouldn't have mattered if it was from you was from the low country or ULM or UVA or Miami or USC or whatever. Because I'm Jerron. You feel me? Put me on any team. I'm gonna change the whole team. Just like how like Tyreek Hill. I think he's probably and Patrick Mahomes. They're probably the two players you can put on any team. They change the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
Or you put them on the Dolphins. Change the whole team. Tyreek and Tua. You might have a little something, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
believe in yourself. So we kind of hit the NFL already. But let's talk about some of the great people that you met. Who's some of the most memorable people in the league that you met, Jerron?
In the league, impact wise, I would have to say my coach in Washington for the Washington football team, Wes Phillips. He was Wade Phillips' son. But West was it was never really was about football. It was about life. And then as far as teammates, Jordan Reed, he was one of the guys who pushed me to read books. And I'm thinking everybody in the league wants to party and do this. Jay Reed would have his iPad reading just random books about, energy, about personal development. Um, so I looked up to him because he was Jordan Reed. Like I knew him from Florida. I'm like, my athleticism is more in line with how he played. So I built a relationship with Jay Reed, and the way kind of he don't even know that one book that he told me to read, it was called Energy Bus. I'm gonna have to tell him, propelled me to read a bunch of books which put me into business and a bunch of other things. But and then in San Francisco, I mean, being there with Cap, of course, seeing what he did as far as like just his stance on social injustice, like that's history, and that me and Kendall got the experience being in that locker room when the cameras there, when all of that was going on, to be a part of history in that at that moment was amazing. But overall, I kind of got a feel from just every team I went to how guys interacted with each other, who did what, and I kind of gravitated towards the guys who were in line with what, like how me and Kendall hung out, and now we're doing this show together, who were in line with my beliefs, and I could see something special in them. I guess looking back, you see a light in certain people, and it shows out later on in life, but definitely, the relationships built from guys with like minds as me.
So
Yeah,
do you?
I definitely want to follow up with that because in the beginning, when I first got in the league, I was an undrafted guy. So obviously, I want to pick the brains with some of the first rounders and some of the veterans on the team. But I was getting the opposite message from my agent because just like iron sharpens iron. So I want to mingle with the guys who were drafted in the first round because I want to see what type of mentality they have. I want to see guys. I want to be able to approach Bo or Pat Willis or Cat and see how they are.
Mm-hmm.
And my agent was kind of like, "Hey man, like you don't be hanging out with them first rounders. You ain't make it." And to me, like it was like, dude, like I'm trying to figure out, like I'm trying to learn something. It's not that I'm just trying to be I'm trying to learn. So I was getting like mixed messages. So for me, like I was out there trying to seek knowledge, but from the guy that was supposed to be in my corner, he was like, yo, like you don't need to be hanging out with the bigger name guys, or you don't need to be doing scene with these guys because they made it. And I would be like, yo, like I'm trying to learn from him, and he just couldn't really understand that. But for sure, that's one of the biggest things that I learned, like in the league, like it's so many guys from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
and you get to learn and pick and see so many people's habits and kind of bring them to yourself. And I still remember when Kat invited me to come with him to Arizona, and I was hanging out with, and I was there with him and Joe Hayden, and it was just like, and this was Joe Hayden when he was like
Mm-hmm.
on top of the world, like as a corner, and I just got to be involved in some of the conversations, even for even Cap to even feel like, because at that time I was only on the practice squad the whole year before that, for him to have the confidence in me that he's like, yo, like this, I see something in this guy that I'm gonna bring him into my life and show him my personal like space. And then it led me to like having these conversations with these all pro fellas, and obviously my career didn't turn out to be an all pro, but it changed perspective. Now you see Cap as one of the most influential players of our generation, and that to share those moments with people like that, to be invited over to the places where being hanging out with Joe Staley. Joe Staley is certified Hall of Famer. Bowman, like Bo,
Yeah.
like, come to the crib, kick it, like get the be experience some of the things and like pick their brains about their thought process was amazing. And just like you said, that's one of the highlights of my career, because I was able to to be around so many great people that it forces you to like up who you are. And you
Mhm.
know, when I was going through my struggles, some of these guys still would I would still reach out to them, and when I was out of the league, and they would still give me some advice or they would help me out. And it is dope to be around that because you understand that like guys like like just because they're all pro guy doesn't mean they aren't human or down to
Yeah.
earth. And to be able to see that, because that was one of my fears when I was going into the league, like, and I'm not, and maybe you can speak on that too. I was really concerned about being like guys and some of the stars being like just totally like an asshole, because that was something coming from a small school. They would always preach like, you better cherish these moments, because when you get to the league, it's not a lot of camaraderie because guys just care about themselves. And when I got there, it was like actually completely opposite for me, especially for how I am. Like I thrive on, interaction. So to me, that was amazing to be able to interact and pick the mind of many great players from across the country.
Right. I think similarly to how people who aren't in the league at all view all NFL players or all professional athletes, you got a little bit of that within the locker room. Like you said, you got your first rounders, then your late rounds and undrafted. So I think also when you coming in as an undrafted guy, speaking for myself, coming in and being an introvert, I was like, again, those guys are different. Like something about them is different. And so I was more on the side of let me earn my time to go talk to them. Let me show them something first. So when I first came in, any team, I would be real quiet, real ducked off, not talking to anybody who didn't talk to me until I show, okay, they see me in the weight room. Oh, dang, he could lift, he could run, see me at practice. And then once they started to kind of open up to me, that's when I would open up to them. But I think that goes back to what we started talking about in the beginning, being extroverted and introverted, because where I was still thinking football, you were more on relationships, and I need to learn from these guys as fast as possible, soak this knowledge in. I'm on straight football. Like I need to prove myself on the field first, and then that will open the door for me to be in their space. That's kind of it's different perspectives, but it's interesting because you got guys doing the same job, doing the same thing, but we're all thinking totally different things within that locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Um, but once again, belief.
Yeah, it all goes back to it. Yeah,
All goes back to belief. And I forgot what I was going to say. Y'all said something. Um, come on, I'll think of it. Um, let's move on. And if I think of it, we'll go back. So one thing that you pride yourself on, which I think is pretty dope, is that you were able to walk away from the game, um,
yeah.
which a lot of people don't get to do. They're kind of forced out, or they have these unique circumstances. So tell us about that and why that's something that's important to you.
Being able to walk away kind of just took my life out of the front office's hands. And it's funny because a lot of people ask, why would you do that? But when you're on the outside looking in, and Kendall, you can probably relate, people don't understand, for one, what it does to your body, and then being cut and re signed, like mentally, your money is tied into how they feel this day. If a corner goes down, I might be out today. And so what ended up happening with me, I broke my leg the last game of the 2016 season, but it was January 1st, 2017. So I thought that I was just going to shake back, come back in, and everything was going to be okay. That's when real life first hit me because no team was calling when I healed and got cleared. I didn't have an income at that point, and I just spent probably like 6 months of spending my money on my expenses because I just knew I was getting back in. So I wasn't even trying to make another source of income at that point. So when I seen the teams not calling, I started building sources of income. I started training, and then I mean some little side things helping people out with other stuff, but then also looking into real estate. But the training was my main business at that point. Then the Seahawks called, and so I lost all my clients when I went there. And when it was over again, I was back to square one, like no clients, no income. That's when I got into trucking. and I ended up getting signed with the Colts after I started the trucking company. But when I started it, that gave me my way out. So if I needed to walk away, I had my source of income now. And that's the biggest thing with transitioning for NFL players or any pro athlete is what's next. What's next that's going to allow you to continue to live, however you live. Some guys do it big. I never was that kind of guy. So the trucking industry came right in and took care of everything as it needed to be. So I was fine with saying, don't take any more workouts. I'm good. I'd rather just know what's going on. I'm consistent here, and let me go ahead and move on in life with my kids. And life in Texas is what it was at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. And it seems like, just from paying attention from the outside, the dudes who just focus on football, they struggle when football is done. The dudes who focus on themselves as a man, they cool when football is done, right? Because they got a plan for after. They got a vision for after. And I remember what I was saying. So, do you still read?
Yeah, yeah. Mostly
Okay.
business books now, but I read
Okay.
something all the time.
So, what kind of impact has that had on you?
Well, just seeing I believe that in books, people really get deeper in their thoughts because I mean, books aren't supposed to be a 10-minute video on YouTube. So the impact that it's had is to see, for one, a lot of guys' stories. I'm seeing where they came from. A lot of them been flat broke and showed, just how being in a vulnerable state and being with a back against the wall type of position pushed them to get to the next level and boosted the dog in them to continue to go. But the thing is, once you learn that dog from being in a bad point, you continue to have it, which propels you to other levels. So reading has showed me that, for one, information is hidden in books. For two, it's a lot of successful people who have stories similar to guys who think it's the end but don't even realize they can get out. If they would just read and study some of these successful individuals, you'll kind of get some confidence and motivation that, okay, if they made it through, I can make it through. So reading is really what got me into business. That's what keeps my business going because it's always new ideas, always new information, and we good to go after a couple books. We good to go.
Man, I'm with you. I try to get people to read, and it's like pulling teeth, man. They tell me they read articles or they read on their phone all day. Like that's the act of reading. But if you
Hmm.
said the detail, reading a book, like you get the whole story, right? And what I learned is like, yo, you may not pick up well, not may not. You're definitely not going to pick up everything a book has to offer. But if you read as like part of your routine, you pick up one major thing here, one major thing there, one major thing there that you're not really going to get from nowhere else, right? And it's like you get to learn from somebody else's 50, 60, 70 years of life in a couple hundred pages. And I think that the overarching theme of our podcast so far has been belief and a lack of information. Not information in general, but information about certain things, especially about moving forward and breaking your standard cycle of thinking. I think is very, very, very important. And I ain't been reading for forever, only about like a year and a half now, but I probably read like 30 something books and it's completely changed my life, So I'm a challenge whoever watches this or listens to this, find the book, and if you don't, it ain't your life book, there you go, just to establish the habit because you never know when you're going to get that one book that'll change your life. So, what was
Yeah.
your influential book, Jerron?
My, I would say, as far as business, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't like where Robert Kiyosaki been tweeting lately, but I read it before all that. And then the Four Agreements is one that's caught traction lately, and I just finished it. And just to read that and kind of relate it to myself, like, oh wow, I do that. I do, take stuff personal, or I do jump ahead of the gun, reading self development books. But the Energy Bus that I was saying that Jay Reed put me on, that one really showed me, as far as situations, that it's always somebody's always going through something worse, and what you're going through is some situation that some people wish they could be in.
Yeah.
So really, those books on like personal development and the mindset really keep me going. I got to read two business books and then books that's going to keep my mind right.
Okay. Okay. I gotta force myself to read things that are not like neuroscience and stuff. Like that's my thing. But I'm trying to force myself to read other stuff. I refuse to just read like a story.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
I gotta read to get something out of it. But what was that one you had, KG? Brain something?
Brain Rules. I actually just got picked this up yesterday. Well, I didn't pick it up. You know, a young lady that I'm dating right now, you know, suggested I read it. So I'm gonna read it.
That joke gonna be done tonight.
Chill out, young boy.
All right. So let's move on to after the NFL. So a father of two girls, and you're on the board of the Excellence Foundation. So what's the Excellence Foundation?
So the Excellence Foundation is a nonprofit based here in Dallas, and it's actually ran by a rocket scientist, Chad Harper. He's an African American rocket scientist, engineer, who said he didn't know anything about that space until he realized he wasn't going to make it in basketball. So it's a group of guys who are fairly successful in their different industries, a couple of venture capitalists on there. But our goal is to, similar to what you guys do, go back into the community and show guys that there are other ways. You got your sports, which we offer a basketball program, but then you got your STEM and you got your engineering, the different avenues to success, so to speak, that there is out there. So our whole thing is propelling the Dallas youth into being interested in things outside of what the norm is or what their perception of success is, and show them like, okay, you got a black man who went to Grambling, who's an engineer, getting paid 300,000 a year now or more. That was the last time we talked. So he didn't go to the NFL, but look at him, he's making that same type of money. And then the venture capitalist doing the same thing. So we're trying to show guys that you got your sports, but where does my longevity come from?
Mhm.
Entrepreneurship. You got your sports, but you got guys getting engineers and being investors and different type of different career paths.
Mhm. That's dope. One of my mentors is actually, this is crazy, a rocket scientist who quit to be a speaker.
What does he speak on?
He speaks with ET and them. He
Okay.
normally just on his story and a bunch of principles under there, but he's a beast with marketing. So he does a lot of their marketing and things like that. And he only has I think 8 fingers, so he ties in a lot of stories to his 8 fingers. Uh,
Hmm.
he's a former rocket scientist, and he quit to be a speaker. So
Yeah, that what we was talking about, like get around people who gonna make you better. That's kind of what the Excellence Foundation was. I'm the youngest guy in there by 17 years,
Dang.
oh wow.
but for some reason, Chad, the CEO, hit me up and was like, "I see what you're doing on social media. Like, I love it. You remind me of me. We want you to be a part and show us, how it is for my generation as far as getting in touch with the youth. But we also want to propel your business and show you, like, or essentially be your mentors, give you the game plan on how we all made it. Because a lot of the guys in there who are super successful, been through points in life where they all said they felt like it was over, but found a way to push through and get to that next level. So I'm like in there as the young guy, and I be spitting and soaking up all the knowledge, and I put my 2 cents in because I want to contribute as well, not just take. And a lot of it they find very valuable as far as like social media. They don't know much about how social media works, so that's my role. Let's reach out to these people. Let's talk like this. Let me go talk to this group, and we all work together as a really good team.
That's dope. 17 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. We would.
Yeah,
17 years.
they see something in you, bro. Um, and let's talk about your trucking company. So how'd you get into logistics and why trucking?
So when the league started getting rocky, and I went to the Seahawks and came back, and my clients were gone, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? My resume is pretty much empty because all I had was football.
Hmm.
So I was going to get like entry level jobs. And I was like, okay, what other business opportunities are there? So I started just Googling and came across trucking. And then my fiance's dad was in trucking. So when he came, we talked about it, and he was like, you don't have to have multiple trucks and you don't have to have contracts. He showed us how it works for most trucking companies. I was like, oh, I could do that. So I hopped in. I got my CDL right away, and I drove for a while because I wanted to learn. I didn't want to just own it and not know what was going on and be getting, gypped by the driver. So I learned it, which allows them to see that. okay, he works. He's not just telling me what to do. And then it also helps business operations because we can talk and work as partners now that I'm no longer driving and just got drivers.
Dope, dope. That's what's up. Do you have any plans to adjust in the future? Because you know how they're saying that the trucking industry is going to be hit really hard due to automation.
Yeah, self-driving.
How are you preparing for that?
So I would buy some of those trucks for one. But
Yeah.
outside of that, more on educating guys right now about trucking. So I'm not necessarily trying to build a huge fleet
Okay.
with the information and the research. Like I just researched a bunch. As a new guy, I wanted to soak up as much as I could. What that allowed me to do was create a platform on YouTube for one, documenting my journey, and then now putting it in a book and courses. And so from being able to make those different courses and streams of income, my other interests are, within real estate, and you got, of course, options, stock market, wholesaling. It's so many different ways to make money. So I'm like, I know how to learn now. I know how to learn any industry and maximize it. So if it does come down to self-driving trucks, that's supposed to be like 2050, I believe. I got a 15-year head start on what's next.
2050? I thought it'd be a lot sooner than that.
To where brokers will actually trust that. Yeah,
Yeah.
what I read would be about 2050 to where they all just they might test it out before that, but I don't think they're gonna get them rolling. If I'm a broker with freight, I'm not about to trust a robot. But another
Yeah.
aspect though is they're saying they're still gonna have a co-driver in there, so a human in there for any glitches or anything that goes wrong.
Yeah, but I'm assuming he's no longer going to be a driver. He's going to be an engineer. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, probably working the system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's killing a lot of American jobs now. Or like Amazon, I don't know what the number is, but like 90% plus of their
Mhm.
houses is robots, right? So it's no longer people taking stuff from the line and putting it on pallets. Like the only people that are needed are the people to engineer the machinery.
Mhm.
Kind of weeds out the standard worker who doesn't have a degree and replaces them with the people who have an engineering degree. You know, so it's like, what do we do with those other people? But that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm with you. But I know the post office in certain areas they're already using the automated trucks, but they're trying to get the failure rate has to be whatever it has to be
Sir.
to invest in it on a massive scale because it's only going to take one accident for all of them to get cut out. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but that's dope. I like your holistic approach because, like you said, there's so many ways to make money these days, especially if you already have capital to invest
Mhm.
in stuff. All you gotta do is read a book, take a course,
Yeah.
put it into action.
Exactly.
You know, but once again, that comes with belief too. Like something else you say is like the stock market, which like everybody is doing now, and all of these other everybody's all of a sudden an entrepreneur. But I think a lot of people are kind of like flirting with the game,
Mhm.
people that truly believe they can dominate the game are the people who are diving into it.
Yeah.
Now people want to say, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I got my own business," or "I'm in the stock market," just to say it, but they're not putting in as much effort as it takes to be great because they don't believe they can be great because they have
Mhm.
too much money now, or they used to be a janitor, or they used to be a teacher, or they used to be a coach, or whatever the case may be. Like that's used to be. You can be whatever you want to be. So I commend you for being a person over an athlete because
Yeah.
athletes struggle. Like as both of y'all know, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's an extremely, extremely high number, especially football players who retire and they dead broke. And there's also a very high divorce rate of retired NFL athletes. So I commit, and that's where your introvert is like, I don't want to say saving you, but sets you apart. Because you always looked at life instead of looking at football. And football was a part of your life as opposed to being your life. So I
Yeah.
thank you for that. And I hope that other people can take some of the things you use and use that for themselves to set themselves apart as well.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because I see a lot of my boys disappear after football. It's like, but why? Because this is when you really should be maximizing. and using your platform. But I
Mhm.
guess identifying only as an athlete when you're done with sports, you no longer know who you are.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
that's interesting.
That's definitely true because for me, unlike you, like I was still trying to dive into it until
Hmm.
I ultimately jumped into the educational route. Um, and then I realized like a lot of times, and as we're seeing it with COVID right now, a lot of people don't identify with anything other than what they do.
Good job.
Um,
Yeah.
so once you kind of dive deep into yourself, then that's when you're able to really pursue multiple angles. And I agree with you. A lot of times, you do see people kind of go rogue, and because one, they're probably like think that people are going to forget about them or people are going to be embarrassed. Because at first, when I was finished playing, like I had that moment. It's like, damn, like I'm done. Like, did I fail? Like, did all this? I did all this and now it's just done. And then it made me have to be like rewire my mind and be like, yo, like hold on, like I've been training and putting in work since I was in this program to get me into a private school since I was like 13 years old. Like I'm way more than this, and now it kind of catapulted me, to be aligned with my cousin Mount and to start something like this because I understand the platform I have. Like
Yeah.
whenever we work with a school or an organization, I understand that like you seen it in the locker room. Like I just have a personality where people are like kind of drawn to me. And
Hmm.
now like I use that to my advantage because as an educator, that's a way for me to build relationships and which will ultimately help lead and teach some other people some things. And plus, me being a former professional athlete also gives me that instant credibility, especially with younger people or in general with business associates, because they knew we were part of something that you had to be on the tip top level of what you needed to do. So I think sometimes people just forget about that side of it. When they're done, you don't understand that like other people who are looking for employees or anything like that, they see that you going to the NFL as a sign of greatness because they understand how hard it is to get there,
Hmm.
right? And then now, especially with people having the ability to start platforms like you are doing with your podcast, like we're doing with our podcast, now it gives us a little bit more instant credibility, and we don't have to go and get some of those certifications that people have because we already have that platform. And
Yeah.
once I broke it down to like, yo, I've been volunteering my time to different places. Every Monday with the Niners, we had the thing where you can go volunteer your time. I did every team I was part of, I would do that. I did it in college. So to me, it was just like, yo, like football was a way for me to have a platform, but my whole calling, my whole life was to serve. Like I was
Yeah.
always like I always served. So it took me a rewiring to realize that like this ain't all I can do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because your whole life you're fed with, oh, you're this guy, you're that guy, like the outside forces, and then sometimes you believe that. Like you're like, okay, like I'm a football guy, and then you realize like, no, like whoa, don't just put me into that one category. And it's crazy because I got to whenever I tell people about me getting a scholarship to a boarding school, they immediately say, oh, for football, right? I'm like, no, first of all, I was 5'5", 185, a little bowling ball as a freshman. I was purely off of my academic, excellence. So from a young age, before I even identified as an athlete, I had to put that work in academically. I couldn't even go outside and play outside with my homies until all my homework was done. I used to get clowned on the block, and I used to have to be the first one inside. So being someone who's been around education and serving other people, it's no surprise to me now that I'm diving into the field of work that I'm doing because I've been doing this my whole life. I was just blinded for a second because of that the athlete. So I think that's why it's so important. And I love the more than the athlete movement because it's
Yeah.
forcing other people to see that and recognize that, yo, it's okay for you to have other feelings and other opinions on something rather than the sport you do.
Hmm. Yeah, what you said with the rewiring, that's interesting because I thought the way I rewired my mind was I'm not a ex NFL player. I'm a high achieving individual who happened to play football.
Mm-hmm.
And so now whatever, and like you guys are doing with this, achieving great things. So whatever I put my energy into, now it has to be a high achievement. It has to be successful, be excellent, because that's what I do. And it's funny that we can make it to the top of a sport where 1% of guys make it, but when we're done, we ask ourselves if we're failures. And it's almost like it's to into the eyes of other people. If you didn't go, you would get looked at as more successful as going and getting cut. It's crazy how the mind works and how people also try to project like, oh, you got cut. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good though. Like, I'm straight. Don't project your energy on me.
Yeah.
But it happens, and then when you don't know what's next, and you got people like, oh, pray God gonna get you back in, and grandma and grandpa saying you trying to get back in the league when you already over it. That's where that energy draining comes from. But what happens is people who hit you up every time, all the time while you were in the league, then you get cut, they disappear. But now when you got something else good going on, they back in your DMs. They just want to be attached to something great, no matter what it is. So now you're no longer, oh, he got cut. He's like, yeah, that's my boy. He was in the league and he does game 7. You know what I mean? The podcast, and they work with the youth and they do this and that. It's crazy that just how people approach the different situations that come. Because I was fine until other people started to project that I should be sad on me. And I was like, oh man, I should be
You're
sad.
not sad that you can't play no more. Like, bro, I'm good. Like,
Yeah, I was
I
good
got
before I
people
talked
to
to
this
you.
day, like, you working out? Might get a call. Like, bro, I'm gonna be 30 in November.
Uh-huh.
I'm slim. I'm way leaner than I ever been before. Ain't nobody.
Yeah,
What is that thing I'm. What is it? It was a boxer. When boxers kind of lose their boxing as they're civilized. It's like, yo, I'm civilized now.
yeah.
I go out there, I'm gonna get hurt.
That
You feel me? I don't got
ain't
that
even me.
football. Like I do. I have a football mentality in the way I kind of live my life. But in terms of trying to get back on the field again, no, sir. I don't even
Right.
have the mentality to play.
I felt that when I went to the Colts. I went back after I started the trucking company, and I was like, of course I'm gonna take. It was practice squad. Of course I'm gonna take this whatever, like 5 grand a week, 7 grand a week. But I was not feeling it. I was just out there still dominating because I could do it, but the energy that I was putting behind it wasn't the same mentally. It was like, that was a nice catch, like, whatever. But I'm ready to go back home and ready to get back to my business. And people can't understand that at all.
Yeah. Well, because like you said, like people, couple of things. People don't spend time with themselves. Like people are struggling now with COVID for the obvious reasons, but because they wasn't doing nothing for themselves previously.
Mm-hmm.
Things you can't control, but one thing that I always say is after work, before work, after school, before school, use the rest of your day to change the rest of your life. You feel me? Like you good now after the league because you was doing things before. You was reading, you knew about business, you looked at other people's struggles, and you had a plan so that when your time came, you was ready for it. You didn't identify by the league. It was a huge part of your life, but you identified by Jerron. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
But when I wasn't playing football, I was doing something else. A lot of people don't do nothing else. They did football, went home, cooled out, did football. Most people go to work, come home, cool out, and don't have no plan for nothing else. So when their identity gets snatched, they don't got the rest of the day to have a rest of their life. Like all of their life is work, all of their life is football, or all of their life is XYZ, right? So then when they look at y'all, why you not working out no more? Are you not getting cut? That's because when people like experience things, usually they outwardly project instead
Mm-hmm.
of inwardly reflect. So they kind of push on you how they would feel in the situation, and they can't really grip that you cool with what you got going on. So it's dope that you use that time before you needed it, if that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, use it to develop something outside of just sports. That that was a game changer because, like I said, going to ULM, I didn't expect the NFL. Then it came, but I already had entrepreneurship in my mind going to college. I didn't know what path it was going to be, but when the NFL started to get rocky, I was like, all right, well, let's click back to what was on your mind in the first place.
Yeah.
And I mean, what you say, they project their own feelings. People being stuck with their thoughts right now I would think it would spark some type of change. Like, I really don't do anything outside of my job. If they're like that, me, if I don't have nothing to do, I got to make something to do. I'm going to find a new course that I'm about to take because I think maybe just that go-getter mentality, like, I can't get stuck ever again. I can't be like trucking. That's one source of income. But what if that, like you said, what if the self-driving trucks come? Well, then I need to have something else ready. But everybody doesn't operate like that because being comfortable is what keeps people sane. So now with the uncomfort of losing jobs and furloughed, now they're listening to the people who offer business opportunities. And what was that you was talking about a couple years ago? Because that they are uncomfortable now.
Yeah. But once the opportunity comes, if you ain't ready for it, it's too late. So that's unfortunate. But I commend you. I appreciate you. And I can definitely tell that like you're not interested, you committed like to learning and like
Yeah.
knowledgeable you are, the more opportunities you see and you can take advantage of. So whoever gets to watch it, there's definitely a lot that you can take from Jerron. And once again, I appreciate you and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
I told you it was going like this. I told you it was going
Yeah,
like
this
this.
is dope. I'm like, dang, we gotta stop. We're gonna have to get on the call one day. We'll just have to hop on the call.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we gonna exchange information. We gonna chop it up.
For sure, man. Y'all be cool, man. Thanks for having me.
No
Yes,
doubt, bro.
sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.